Trump wants to end the IRS. Will it benefit Americans? But before we get started with this demonstration, let me read my copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Salute low key, Appreciate you for pulling up. Now, what is going to happen if Trump ends the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service? Would it still be a good idea for taxpayers to file their taxes? What are y'all thoughts? I mean, with so many of these executive orders being signed, with so much going on, Trump wanting to end this, Trump wanting to cut that out, my opinion, a lot of it I actually agree with. Some of the things I don't. Now, when it comes to ending the IRS, he has his reasons for wanting to end the IRS. Salute, Jamie. Salute, Positive Vibes. Salute, Marie. To me, it makes sense. So this is what he's saying. He's saying for all these years, right, the American people has been getting taxed. We've been paying taxes, right? He's saying, let's stop having the American people pay these taxes. The American people, we work hard. We work hard. Instead of taxing the American people, instead of taking taxes out of the American people paychecks, why not tax these countries? I'm all for that. Salute Pretty Problem Niche. Salute Pretty Problem Niche. I'm for it if he could pull it off. But y'all know what I like to do. I like to go to legal experts first before I give my commentary. So let's get some legal advice from some legal experts. And then I'll come back and I'll give my commentary.
So the United States President, Donald Trump, goes on the Joe Rogan podcast last fall, and he says remarkable things. Now, one of the most remarkable things he says is the IRS was a stupid idea and the idea of enemies of the United States of America. Well, I uploaded a video right afterwards explaining how Donald Trump could get rid of the IRS without passing one law.
So according to my man right here, he's saying that Donald Trump can get rid of the IRS without passing one law. Salute Michelle. Salute Michelle. Did y'all know that? All right, let's see what my man has to say.
It is right now, that video has 750,000 views, making it my most popular ever. So I know there is a lot of interest in Donald Trump's threat to end the IRS. So with Donald Trump's threat or promise to end the IRS, here's the logical question. Should you file your taxes in 2025? Well, in this video, I'm going to answer that question. But first, I just want to explain my bias. Hey, look, I'm a 20-year tax attorney, and I make money when people hire my firm to prepare taxes, so understand that bias. However, I'm also a human being and a 20-year tax attorney, so I know firsthand exactly what the IRS is, and trust me, there's plenty of other opportunities for me other than fixing these terrifically horrible tax problems. So with that understanding, let's get into the analysis. Number one, if the government owes you a refund, the only way to get it back is to file your taxes. So not filing your taxes really won't own the government, but rather you would want to file it to get your refund. And to understand something, you only have a limited amount of time to get that refund. In true government fashion, the IRS can have forever to assess your taxes if you don't file a tax return. But however, it doesn't work the other way because the government only gives you a limited amount of time to claim a refund. It's going to be 3 years from the due date of the return or 2 years from the date of payment. So
according to my man, he's saying it would just be a wise decision, a good idea to go ahead and file this year's taxes from last year. So
if you wait, you actually might lose out. So then let's get into the heart of the matter. Should you file your taxes if you're going to owe money? Well, here's some problems with not filing your taxes aside from the IRS. If you have kids in college, you need to fill out a FAFSA form. That form is going to ask you for your tax returns, but I think you could probably hold off on 2025 filing because of the delay. Eventually, though, you're going to have to file a return if the IRS isn't gone.
So if the IRS isn't gone, eventually you're going to have to file it. Me, I would say go ahead and file your taxes because right now we don't know if Donald Trump is going to end the IRS or not. So if you're thinking about, well, Donald Trump is going to end the IRS or going to end the IRS, so it ain't no need for me to file taxes, you might want to think that again. I would say file your taxes.
You're going to have to file. Well, look, if you own a business and have investors or other partners, you're going to need to file. Otherwise, you could be breaching your fiduciary duty and getting yourself into a whole bunch of problems you would probably not want to have. Okay, well, let's just assume you're in a situation where there's no one who's going to be mad if you don't file your returns other than the government. Should you file or not? Well, we're not really sure what the future holds. Maybe the IRS sticks around, maybe it goes away, maybe it goes away eventually. So we're taking a gamble. But let's just assume that the IRS never quite goes away, and you're wrong. What would happen if you didn't file on time or pay? Well, here's the thing. It's pretty easy. Once you file, the IRS will assess penalties. They'll assess penalties for failing to file late and failing to file timely. However, here's the trick. You can actually file a first-time penalty abatement to get those penalties waived. However, as the name implies, you only can do it once, and if you've already claimed it or you've had previous late periods, you might not be entitled to it. So you're running the risk of some late filing penalties if you're wrong. Well, the next thing to look at is criminal exposure because most...
All right, let's chop it up on that. Let's chop it up on that real quick. So you will be hit. You will be hit with a penalty if you don't file and the IRS stays around. Who all is in agreement? Drop a one and let me know if you are in agreement with Donald Trump ending the IRS. Drop a 2 if you feel like the IRS should stay. Let's see what y'all talking about. Drop a 1 if you with Donald Trump ending the IRS. D-Money, salute. D-Money is with it. D-Money is with it. Who else? Who else? Somebody talk to me. Who else in agreement? Positive Vibes, Michelle, they want it to stay. Positive Vibes said, I want my tax money, Shank. I look forward every year to my tax money. Salute, Snoopy. Salute, Snoopy. Marie wants it to stay the same. Positive Vibes want to stock up on them hot dogs. That's why Positive Vibes want the IRS to stay around. I know Positive Vibes. I know Positive Vibes want to stack up on them hot dogs. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I want to see what foreigners has to say. And when I say foreigners, I'm talking about people from other countries. Bullets, 408, drop 2. I want to see what other people have to say about the IRS being ended.
Income tax. Take a listen.
As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens.
How many of y'all agree with that? I'm doing good, D-Money. I'm doing good, D-Money. I see Jamie, you ain't get the MO yet. I see Jamie didn't get the MO. We throw up hot dogs over here, not tacos. That's what Miss Parker platform.
First, I kind of thought this was a joke, but Congress is taking this seriously. The Fair Tax Act of 2025 was a bill proposed which would effectively abolish the IRS. And if you still don't believe me, let me read you one sentence from the bill's press release. The fair tax would also eliminate the need for the Internal Revenue Service. Now, you're probably wondering, if the government decides to cancel your income tax, how do they get money? Which might explain why Trump has also been working to create the IRS, the External Revenue Service, as a new entity to collect tariffs. That's what.
So maybe I need to backtrack it, because y'all remember I was against Donald Trump taxing, or I was against the tariffs that Donald Trump was putting on China, Mexico, and Canada. So maybe I need to backtrack it.
In this video, I want to talk about taxes, not from a political perspective, but from a financial perspective, because as a licensed attorney who's not your attorney, who keeps a copy of the Federal Income Tax Code in his office, which is, by the way, a 2,000-page book with 8 or 10-point font, I can tell you that taxes are very confusing, and they might get even more confusing. And so I want to break this down by talking about 3 things. Number 1, I want you to really understand how our tax system works today, that we can understand how tariffs flow into it. Number 2, I want to talk about tariffs as a potential replacement for the income tax. What does that look like? Is it possible? And then number 3, I want to talk about, well, what would the consequence of that be? Would it make the inflation problem worse or not? Which is why I want you to really stick with me till the end, because I think it'll really help you understand the entire big picture. This is a very rough drawing of how our tax system works. This is you. For my male followers, I drew a mustache, which in my native language Punjabi is a much. For my female followers, I drew a braid, which in my native language Punjabi is called a gut.
So he's going to break it down, all right? But before I can let him break it down, let me get everybody to double tap the screen to get my likes up. We got 110 watching with only 10 likes. Let the likes match how many people that's watching. So if I could get y'all to double tap the screen and get those likes up to 102. We got 110 watching now with only 11 likes. Let me get y'all to double tap the screen to get the likes up.
You pay the government taxes. I'll explain how and why you pay the government taxes in just a second, but you pay the government taxes, and then when the government collects this tax revenue, they can go out and spend this tax money. Now, you might think that if the government collects $100 in taxes, that they can only spend $80 out of the 100, or maybe max $100 because that's all they have. But that's not true, because if the government wants to spend money that they don't have, which is what they've been doing, then what they do is they go out and borrow that money, which is why we're seeing a record high amount of national debt today. Which means you pay taxes to the government goes out and spends all of their taxes and then some with the help of debt. Now you might be wondering, well, what are you paying taxes on exactly? Here's a rough list of 10 different buckets of taxes that you might be paying. Number 1 is your income taxes. You go to work to make money. Well, some of that money is going to go in the form of income taxes because you just got paid. The government wants their fair share. Number 2 is payroll taxes. Payroll taxes are on top of your income taxes, which is when you get a salary, you have to pay FICA taxes. This is Social Security and Medicare taxes.
So he's given us just a brief listing of at least 10 of things that we pay taxes on.
Which is paid by you and your employer. If you're self-employed, you have to pay both ends of it, so you have to pay double the payroll taxes, but this is paid on top of your income taxes. Number 3 is capital gains taxes. If you go out and buy a stock and you sell it for profit, you have to pay taxes on that. That's called capital gains taxes. Number 4 are corporate taxes. If you run a C corporation, you run a big corporation and you make profits, the corporation has to pay taxes in addition to the people that are actually getting the money. Number 5 are property taxes. You buy a house, you got to pay taxes every year, which is called your property tax. Number 6 is called your estate tax, also known as your death tax, which is when you die. If you pass money down to your kids, you have to pay taxes on that.
Now, not everybody's gonna have to pay taxes. This is really just reserved for the wealthy. As of 2025, the limit is you have to pass down more than $13.99 million before you have to worry about this estate tax. But if you're passing down huge sums of wealth, you also have to worry about this estate or death tax. Number 7.
How many of y'all knew that about the estate tax? D Money says, I'm wanting to lump sum in February or get it right now every payday. Give me mine every payday, D Money. Give me mine every payday.
Are sales taxes. You go to the store and buy things, you gotta pay sales taxes. Number 8 are sin taxes. These are taxes put on things like cigarettes. If the government doesn't like it, like lottery, well then they'll put a tax on it as a way for the government to make some more money as well. Number 9 are tariffs, which we already know, and I'm gonna go deeper into tariffs. And then number 10 are other. It's kind of lumped everything else here because there are other types of taxes as well. For example, toll taxes. For example, certain times you might see hotel taxes. So there are a
Shit, that's why we broke. That's why we can't get ahead. You feel me? Positive Vibe says just learned about it. D Money says same. That's why we broke. That's why we can't get ahead. We getting taxed every which way but loose.
lot of different types of taxes out there. And what President Trump is trying to propose, and what it seems like he's proposing, is saying, hey, let's take this category of tax right here, this income tax, which everybody who has a job has to worry about, let's get rid of that, and let's replace that by increasing this tax right here, tariffs from goods from other countries.
How many of y'all is so far in agreement with those income taxes? I gotta backtrack the tariff taxes on China, Mexico, and Canada. But I get what he's saying when it comes to your income. Like, I think one time, like, man, I did a lot of overtime, and they ended up taxing me close to $200. Close to $200 went to taxes. And I'm thinking that I'm getting ready to get a nice check, but they tax me. Positive Vibes says tax on everything but the right stuff. Facts, Positive Vibes, facts.
Now that we all have a foundation of how our tax system works, where the government is going to collect taxes from you and then they're going to spend all that money and then some with the help of debt, let's now talk about, could we actually feasibly use tariffs as a replacement for the income tax? Now, I do want to let you know that if you're an investor and you like to stay up to date on what's happening in things like the economy and things like the stock market, things like the housing market, the crypto market, and the global economy, my team at Briefs Media publishes an amazing free newsletter every day called Market Briefs, where we break down what's happening in the economy, in the financial markets, into a quick and witty and fun to read newsletter. You can read it in less than 5 minutes every morning, and it's completely free. We have hundreds of thousands of investors that are reading Market Briefs every morning. So if you'd like to join for free, I have the link for you to join down in the description. In 2020,
D Money said, I just got summoned for jury duty. Will I get my tax money back if I go? I don't know, D Money. But I don't never go when they summons me.
Before, the IRS collected about $5.1 trillion in income taxes. And then out of the $5.1 trillion that they collected, the IRS then had to pay back a little bit over $500 billion in the form of tax refunds and credits. So let's just say, we'll call it that the government collected around $4.5 trillion in the form of income taxes. Now, I know I'm just a random guy on YouTube, but if I did some basic math, if you want to get rid of the income tax, I think that you'd have to collect an additional $4.5 trillion in the form of tariffs in order to negate that. So I did a little bit of digging, and according to the United States Customs and Border Protection website, here's what I found. There were about $3.35 trillion of goods imported into the United States in 2022, of which we generated around $111 billion in tariffs. Now I know that was based off of 2022 numbers, but that's the best data that we have from the government agencies themselves. But if we take a look at the 2022 numbers, that means, in theory, the government would have to impose something like a 130% tariff on all imported goods into the United States in order to generate $4.5 trillion based off of the $3 trillion or so that was brought in or imported into the United States in 2022, which doesn't seem very feasible. Not to mention the fact that the goal of tariffs is to bring some manufacturing back to the United States, which might have you thinking, if we slap on big tariffs and some more manufacturing comes back into the United States, we might have even less imported goods because less goods are being made overseas. So if less goods are being made overseas, more goods are being made here, less goods are being imported, and there's less tariffs are being collected. So based off of the 2022 numbers, to just rely on tariffs to offset the income tax seems very difficult unless, of course, the government cuts down their spending as well. Part of the reason why the government needs such high income taxes is because they spend a lot of money. Not only do they spend a lot of money, they're spending a whole lot more money than what they even have.
Let me just stop it right there, y'all. Maybe that's why Trump laid off all of those government workers. For me, I just don't like the fact that all of those workers are out of jobs. You know, and we know what happens. Because, listen, as humble as I am, as peaceful as I am, as righteous as I am, if I ain't got no money coming in from no job, if I ain't got nothing coming in, then look, without me saying what I would do, I'm saying what I would do. So now you got all these workers. They got families. They got health concerns, health care. They got just the basic necessities that they're going to need to survive. What do you think they're going to do? They might end up losing their minds, and ain't no telling what they will do. A man without a job, a woman without a job. D-Money says, why they always summon you when your money right? Right. Brooklyn says he gave them over 2 years severance, though. All right. I could accept that, Brooklyn. I could accept that. Positive Vibe says it's too much going on to not have a job. They needed those jobs. That's what I'm saying. And look, even with a job, we still struggling. But just imagine without a job. So I'm going to have to really do some more backtracking to really see if it's a good idea. D-Money says 2 years for a person whose whole foundation is based on that job. And that's facts. Some people, that's all they know is work. So I get what you're saying, Brooklyn Joe, but just the mere fact of they're without a job now, you know, that causes trauma, I'm sure. All right. We're going to get some more legal advice from someone from another ethnic group. All right. We're going to spread it around. We're going to get some legal advice, different views from different people from different ethnic groups just to see, you know, some different opinions. Here's some different opinions. Salute, Coach. Salute, Coach. Salute, Coach. I see you, Coach Art. All right. Let's get some advice from this man. Rome says, in the IRS and create an external revenue service. How many of y'all agree with Rome? How many of y'all agree with Rome? Drop a 3. Drop a 3 if you agree with Rome. Drop a 2 if you disagree. Mobile app says, first time here. Hope everyone is doing well. Appreciate you for pulling up with us, Mobile app. Everybody, make sure y'all make Mobile app feel welcome. This is Mobile app, first time pulling up with us. So make sure everybody make Mobile app feel good. But drop a 1. Okay, Mobile app says, you know, maybe not. D-Money says 2 because how long will external last? Good point. Good point.
In American history. Well,
President Trump has officially laid out his tax priorities as Congress prepares to pass a bill. And if this passes, it will literally be the largest tax cut ever. I mean, seriously, just watch this clip from his press secretary.
No tax on tips, which is obviously a very public campaign promise that the president made. No tax on seniors' Social Security. No tax on overtime pay. Renewing President Trump's 2017 middle-class tax cuts. Again, these are the president's priorities. Adjusting the SALT cap, eliminate all the special tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners, close the carried interest tax deduction loophole, tax cuts for Made in America products.
And following this announcement, the White House posted the same summary on X. So, as a licensed CPA that has been following every progression in Trump's tax plan, I want to help you understand what exactly is going on here, and more importantly, how you can benefit from these potential tax cuts. All right, so let's start with the top of the list here. Tax priority number 1, no tax on tips. So the current rule right now is that tips, just like any other form of income, are treated as taxable income, and when we report it, we pay income tax, Social Security tax, and Medicare tax on that income when we file our taxes.
Salute roast to toast. This not what I was looking from a man. I thought I had uploaded the right one. All right, we're going to come back to my man. Let me see. We'll come back to my man. Wait a minute, is this it? All right, this is it from my man right here. All right, y'all.
Is this the end of income tax as we know it? Well, President Trump has floated this idea around and people are completely running away with it.
Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure, but why not?
But what most taxpayers really want to know is, well, is this an actual possibility or just smoke and mirrors?
Are you proposing eliminating all federal income taxes in a Trump-Vance administration?
Well, Donald Trump didn't propose that. He set that as an aspirational goal.
So as a licensed CPA that studies the tax code for a living, I want to help you understand this whole eliminating income tax concept and show you actual numbers of what would need to happen to realistically achieve this.
All right, my man, get ready, do the numbers for us. Salute Tracy. My man, get ready to do the numbers, all right? Let's see what my man come up with these numbers.
All right, so realistically eliminating income tax would first require the government to fix its spending problem. So let's set the stage here by closely examining the situation we are currently in. So in 2024, the federal government spent over $6.7 trillion, with the largest spending categories being Social Security, Medicare, national defense, our interest expense, health, and so on. And on the receiving side of this, the government only received about $4.9 trillion in revenue from taxes. And 90% of that revenue came from income taxes, like individual income tax, corporate income tax, Social Security and Medicare taxes, and so on. So when we talk about eliminating income taxes, we are talking about cutting almost $5 trillion of our tax revenue in a world where we are already in a massive spending deficit and spending close to $7 trillion. And by the way, this deficit has resulted in all-time high national debt levels, with it being over $35 trillion as of the end of 2024. But still, even considering all of this, there are some realistic paths to eliminating income tax, which would require one or two things happening. Either A, we replace income tax with other forms of taxes like tariffs or consumption taxes, for example, or B, we cut government spending so much that the government does not need to assess as much income tax as it currently does. And both of these things are currently in the works right now. So let's break this down a little bit more here, starting with replacing income tax with tariffs. Okay, so if you don't know, this is not a new concept. Before income tax ever existed, tariffs were the primary source of revenue for the federal government.
So let's stop right there. Rome says file your taxes, because if the Department of Government Efficiency, which is DOGE, gives out them $5,000 stimulus refunds, you're going to have filed your taxes to get that. Brooklyn Joe says run up those tariffs. countries did it to us for years. And I agree. And as my man just said, it was a time when we didn't get taxed. It was a time when the government didn't hit us for income taxes. And how did we survive? Well, according to my man, we survived off of the tariffs. So I'm rethinking my thoughts on those tariffs to Canada, Mexico, and China. I'm rethinking, y'all.
Especially during the 18th and 19th centuries.
You know, the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States.
Can somebody fact check that? Can somebody fact check that? Let me backtrack it. Can somebody fact check what Donald Trump
No,
just
this is
said?
not a new concept. Before income tax ever existed, tariffs were the primary source of revenue for the federal government, especially during the 18th and 19th centuries.
You know, the United States in
So between 1870 to 1913, was it the richest time? Let me make sure.
1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States.
Was that the richest period in the United States? Positive Vibe says so. They trying to go back to the original way. Right. It makes you think. It makes you think, Positive. Mobile app says, I'm back. I must have hit a button or something. Appreciate you for coming back. We got 200 watching with only 28 likes. Can I get everybody to double tap the screen to get my likes up? Over 200 watching with just 28 likes. Double tap the screen. Mobile app says riches per capita. Yes. Double tap the screen and get my likes up, please.
And income tax was only introduced as a temporary tax. It was only supposed to be used as an emergency measure for the U.S. government to recover costs related to the Civil War in the 1860s. And after that war, the tax was basically eliminated. For example,
so income tax was supposed to have been something that was temporarily. You learn something new every day. Income tax was something that was supposed to have been something temporarily.
Government to recover costs related to the Civil War in the 1860s, and after that war, the tax was basically eliminated. For example, just look at this chart published on the White House's website. As you can see here, the share of tariff revenue was nearly 100% of federal tax revenues until about the 1860s when the war began. And this is because the government started collecting income tax during this time period. And once they stopped collecting this tax, the share of tariff revenue increased again. But then in 1913, the 16th Amendment was passed and income tax became a permanent tax. And ever since then, we've seen income tax rates fluctuate up and down over the last century. And that brings us to where we are today, with income tax bringing in almost $5 trillion in revenue for the federal government. So when we think about replacing income tax with tariffs, the primary question becomes, well, how much tax revenue would tariffs actually bring in? Well, in 2024, the U.S. imported about $4 trillion of goods and services. And even if we assess a 10% tariff on 100% of those imports, that would result in only $400 billion in tax revenue. And even if we ignore the fact that our imports would likely decrease due to these extra taxes and all of the other economic factors around things like inflation and so on, we would still have a large gap in tax revenue. We're talking about $5 trillion in income tax that we receive versus maybe $400 billion from tariffs, give or take. And even if the tariffs doubled in size, it would likely still not be enough to close the gap in tax revenue for the federal government. So what else can we do then? Well, outside of tariffs, there has also been calls to implement a national sales tax to replace income tax as well. On January 3rd of 2025, the Fair Tax Act bill was introduced to replace income tax with a national sales tax on goods and services. It proposes adding an additional 23% sales tax on purchased goods and services as a means to increase tax revenue for the federal government without taxing income. But still though, regardless of how you feel about this type of tax, critics argue that the revenue generated from a tax like this would still fall short of generating enough tax revenue. with some people saying that the tax would have to be at least 44% to generate enough revenue for the federal government. So just imagine a 44% sales tax on anything that you buy.
Let's chop it up, y'all. Wow. Let's chop it up. Yeah, he was great, Mobile App. He really broke it down. And before we get out of here, I'm going to go back to him. But I just wanted to just get some of y'all comments and just shed a little light on how the income tax was just something that was supposedly been temporarily after the Civil War. So, you know, Joseph, salute Joseph. Joseph says the federal government was never supposed to be this big. And that's another thing. The government was never supposed to have gotten as big as it is. So with Trump, it makes sense. It makes sense. With Trump signing the many executive orders, with Trump wanting to do away with certain programs. You know, there's a lot of programs that he's trying to get rid of. Some of them I agree with. You know, the thing when it comes to the, I think it's the breakfast for the kids and all that. No, keep that. Some programs keep. However, a lot of the other programs get rid of. I'm going to try to get to all these comments, y'all. Rome says Americans were never supposed to be more than 1% of the total tax revenue. Joseph says funding it with tariffs means the government is motivated to support and defend a strong and robust economy that the world wants to trade with. Mobile App says the tax doesn't need to be that high. By reducing the demand, in other words, the size of the government, the need for revenue drops with it accordingly. Joseph says funding it with income taxes motivates the government to maximize transactions. All good points. All good points. So I'm just waiting to see. I'm just waiting to see if the IRS is going to come to an end. I mean, I like his, what word am I looking for? I like his angle to really wanting to change things. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Before Trump came along, Democratic presidents as well as Republican presidents, let's be honest, they didn't have the whole of America in their best interest. Now, I could say on both sides, Democrat presidents and Republican presidents. Now, here comes Trump. Trump shaking the trees. You know, Trump is causing a major disturbance. And Trump got everybody running. Like I said, when it comes to the federal workers being fired and all of that, even though they got a 2-year severance package and all that, I didn't agree with that. I didn't agree with that. You know, but like I said, he's shaking things up. He's shaking things up. And I know people was always pushing different narratives. Well, Trump, he's racist. Well, I've been seeing Trump doing a lot of things for melanated people. I'm just saying. I really see Trump doing things for all Americans. You know, I see Trump. So, but let me go back to my man, and then we're going to get out of here. Trump is definitely shaking things up.
So that's the revenue problem. But outside of finding ways to replace the income tax revenue, the government can also reduce income taxes by cutting government spending. Because ultimately, if the government spends less money, it can afford itself the ability to collect less taxes, and that is currently a priority for the Trump administration. For example, they have launched DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiency, which is led by Elon Musk, to cut unnecessary government spending, with the initial goal being to identify at least $2 trillion in savings for the federal government. And at the time of this video, they report finding over $55 billion in savings for the federal government and are still in the early stages of this process. But even with that, there is not going to be an unlimited amount of spending that they can realistically cut. For example, in 2024, there was $4.1 trillion in mandatory spending, and 75% of that was on things like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And then there's about $1.8 trillion in discretionary spending, but almost half of that is on defense spending alone, and the remaining $880 billion was spent on interest expense, on the record levels of national debt that we have, which would only increase if we continue to spend more money than we collect in taxes. So that's the situation. I'm all for cutting unnecessary government spending, but how much of that will we actually be able to cut? And would that be enough to realistically eliminate income tax? Eliminating income tax would likely require the government to replace that tax revenue with other forms of taxes, like tariffs or consumption taxes. And remember, they would have to raise a significant amount of revenue from those taxes in order to replace income tax altogether.
Thanks, Mobile App. Thanks, Mobile App. Appreciate you, Mobile App. Thanks.
And even if they do, remember, we are in a spending deficit. So they would need to cut enough government spending or raise even more money from taxes in order to afford a tax cut like this. Also, it's worth mentioning that when President Trump was on the campaign trail, the specific words that he used on his campaign website regarding this concept was that as tariffs on foreign producers go up, taxes on American workers, families, and businesses can come down. Again, down. It did not say eliminate taxes altogether, but it says that it could come down, which is consistent with his current tax priorities, which involve cutting taxes on tips, Social Security, overtime pay, and extending various tax cuts on individuals, investors, and businesses. So personally, I don't think that there is an intentional plan to actually end income tax in the immediate future. But comment below and let me know what you think about this below. And by the way,
My man was dropping some jewels, y'all. Appreciate that positive vibes. Hey, positive vibes. I ain't mad at you. All right, just for doing that positive vibes, I'll give you a seat back over here with the angels. All right, positive vibes. So take that in consideration before we get back and you start running with them troublemakers. Just say, well, damn, Shank then made me an angel again. All right, I'm going to leave these troublemakers alone. But I appreciate everybody for pulling up. Mobile App, I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Joseph, I appreciate y'all comments. Brooklyn, I appreciate everybody's comments. As y'all can see, like Mobile App said, once you get to a certain level, it's hard for me to read everybody's comment. It's hard for me to keep up with the chat. So I tell everybody, purchase a super chat. I answer all super chats. All you gotta do is click on the $ and it will let you type in whatever it is that you need to say to me or any questions that you had. And that'll be supporting the channel. But if you want me to read any comments, answer questions, just purchase a super chat. But once again, I appreciate everybody for pulling up. This is an open platform. Everybody is welcome. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, government, black nationalists, people that's non-political, whomever, whatever. If you want to talk and you got an opinion and you don't mind sharing your opinion with us, come on and pull up. Come on and pull up over here. Everybody's perspective is welcome. Everybody's opinion will be honored. So don't think that, well, I want to voice my opinion, but they might get mad. No. Even if you disagree with me, you can disagree with me, but everybody's opinion is welcome over here. I'll see everybody back tomorrow at, let's say 9 a.m. If not 9 a.m., 10 a.m. But I'll see everybody back in the morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Salute everybody.